Hey everybody, it's Tony from Adafruit, and I wanted to do a Raspberry Pi stream today because it's Pi Day. So we'll have some fun. We're going to look at the OSMC, Open Source Media Center player, which is a really cool distribution you can run on your Raspberry Pi to do things like playback movie files, music, stuff like that. So last week I did a stream playing with emulators on the Raspberry Pi 3, and so I thought, well, let's do the Media Center stream this week to look at the Raspberry Pi 3 and like how well it performs if you play back DVDs and Blu-rays and things like that. And I actually found that things work pretty well, so we'll kind of dive in and I'll show you what we'll play with. First, I'll show you the software real quick. So we'll jump to this view of the desktop. So we'll just get a Wirecast out of the way. And so what I wanted to show is the software called OSMC, the Open Source Media Center, and it's osmc.tv is the website. And I'm really impressed with the projects. Like, they have a beautiful website, really nice, highly polished. And from what I saw, it's very easy to use. And I'll kind of show you the interesting things that I saw and why this is a little bit easier to use than some of the other stuff with the Raspberry Pi. So check out the website. You can read a little bit about it. It's basically, I think a lot of people who just do this in their free time. I mean, it looks like a commercial project. This thing is really nicely polished. So really hats off to them for doing this. It's free, it's open source, and they support a few different platforms. So they talk about, there's this thing called the Vero that's, I think, a little media player. But they also support the Raspberry Pi, the 2 and the 3 model. And so I'm going to use the Model 3, which has a little bit faster processor, the ARM Cortex A53 CPU architecture. So we'll see how well it performs. But you can go to their download page and get the installer for it. And one thing I wanted to highlight also about this, they really put in a lot of effort to make it easy to do the installation. So you can actually download a little application here, a cross-platform application, and if you run it, it gives you a little wizard that lets you step through the whole installation process. So I'm going to run it right here, and I won't do the whole install, but it basically just walks you through, okay, what do you want to install, what language do you want. I'm going to install this on a Raspberry Pi 2 or 3, and you can kind of pick, okay, what version do I want. Let's pick the latest version here. You can choose where you want to install it onto, so I'm going to do this on an SD card, and we'll go through there. And what's really cool, you can actually configure your networking. So I'm going to use a wired network connection, but you can configure like a wireless connection. I think it'll even ask you like what Wi-Fi network. Okay, yes, this is asking like what IP address I want to use for this, so I'm not going to put that in right now. But that's pretty cool. And then it actually says, okay, now pick which SD card you want to burn the image to. So I can pick an SD card that I've connected to the computer right here. And if I click go, then it's actually just going to go and just burn that SD card. So I'm not going to do that right now. But I just wanted to highlight that this is really well done. Like, this is a beautiful little installer, very simple to use. I mean, anyone could pick this up and burn an SD card, because one of the big stumbling blocks that a lot of people have is that, you're new to Raspberry Pi and you're probably new to things like Linux and being able to burn an SD card image, and it's not just as easy as opening up File Manager in like Windows, and trying to copy files to an SD card. You really have to burn things at a low level. So having a little installer like this really helps, and I'm just really impressed that they went this extra mile to do this. So hats off to them. And that's why I think this is something that, even if you're kind of new to Raspberry Pi and you aren't really sure, how to do a lot of things, I wouldn't feel too worried checking this out as a newcomer. Like, it seems like it's really easy to use, and they've tried to make this a great little platform. So let's jump to, I've got it running, and we'll switch to the view of it here. So let's go to, or actually we'll jump to the workbench shot. So this is just what I've got set up on my machine right here. So this is the Raspberry Pi 3, and then this is a little external hard drive that I have. So this is a little Seagate 1 terabyte model, and so it's just a typical kind of external drive. You can pick these up anywhere. I have this actually just directly connected to the Pi, so I don't have an external power source. That's one new thing with the Pi 3 is that it has a little bit better power stage so that it can support higher power devices. So it seems to be running this hard drive just fine without an external power supply. But I should just preface that and say, I mean, every drive is different. Some drives might be more power hungry. This one uses like the small little laptop drives. And I'm sure if you had like an SSD or something to use even less power. So you might still need to use an external power supply, but maybe give it a shot with the Pi and see how it goes. And then otherwise, I also have just a little wireless keyboard connected to this. Really nice little keyboard we have in the shop. So it's got a little mouse pad right here and everything kind of ready to go on it. So I'll use this to drive OSMC, and we'll switch over to the Pi over here. And let me just kind of wake it up. It takes it a second here. So this is basically what I've got. I just installed OSMC onto the SD card, and when you first run it, it has a real nice slick setup phase where it'll go through, I think it'll expand the SD card storage, walk you through a little bit of a one-time setup that asks you, like what language do you want, what's your time zone, that type of stuff. And after you do that, then it just kind of dumps you into here. And from what I understand, they're using Kodi as the backend, and so Kodi is kind of the big popular open source media center application. Came from XBMC, the Xbox music player, and just over time it's evolved. Really popular platform, so there's lots of like little plugins and cool stuff you can do with it. And for just like plain media files, things like movies and music, it works really well. And it works especially well with files that you have kind of locally. So, things like if you've ripped your DVD collection to a hard drive, like I've pulled some down onto this drive here, even Blu-rays and things like that we'll play with and see how they work. If you have like, movie clips and things that you've downloaded, they work really well with this kind of system. Unfortunately, it doesn't work super well with like Netflix and, all these online streaming video services, mostly because a lot of them don't have like a Linux client. I think there are certain hacks you can use, maybe not even hacks, but like add-ons you can get to potentially make some of those things work. But just be aware, it's not perfect. Like, I wish there was some perfect system that gave you Netflix and great local media playback, but it's just all not kind of there yet. But I want to hopefully show that, with the Raspberry Pi, you can get a really killer media center, it looks like. I was playing around with it a little bit earlier and just really impressed with the performance of this. So let's just kind of jump in here. And oh, cool, I just noticed in the chat, looks like some folks from OSMC are here. So yeah, thanks for showing up. And hey, nice job, guys. Like, this is really beautiful software here. So, and oh yeah, I'm just mentioning here too. So check out the osmc.tv. It sounds like they also have a store over there. So like certain apps and things to check out. And in the description, when this goes up on YouTube, I'll put links to everything in here too. So let's just kind of jump in. So I wanted to test a few things out on the stream. I wanted to see with the Pi 3, could it play back a DVD rip as like an ISO file. And so like I have a bunch of DVDs that I've just ripped. You can use, I'll put links to the software. I used a program called AnyDVD on Windows that's really easy. It's like one click, you just rip the DVD and it takes care of all the copyright issues and things. It's commercial, but it's not super expensive. And so I ripped some DVDs and we'll see kind of how they work on here. And then I also wanted to try Blu-ray. So actually I ripped a Blu-ray disc, and we'll see kind of how that performs. And I have a few test clips also of like some MKV files that test some of the higher bit rates to see how well they work on here. And then also like some music and stuff like that. We can try that too. So let's just jump in and we'll go into the videos here. And so I've got, like I said, I have a little external hard drive connected, and it just popped up. I didn't have to do anything. I'm really impressed. Like, it automatically mounted it, so it's available here. So I'm on my little hard drive here. And maybe I'll start with some DVDs. And actually, the DVDs I wanted to show are really cool. I'll put a link in here to the DVDs. They're actually Creative Commons now, but I actually have copies of them. So it's these DVDs. Oops, kind of hold these up. It's called Mind Candy. And they're 2 DVDs. They came out about 10 years ago or so, maybe even longer than that. And they're collections of PC and Amiga demos. So if you aren't familiar with the demo scene, it was basically a really cool kind of creative scene in the early 90s or so. Even in the 80s, of programmers trying to show their skills at like how well they could program something, and it came from like cracking software. Someone would crack a game, they would put a little intro on it that's kind of like a signature that says, hey, you know, this is cracked by some cool dude, and have fun, you know, music and stuff like that. And over time, everyone kind of want to one-up each other and say, okay, well, I can build an even fancier intro to this crack. And eventually they said, well, hey, why do we even put these with cracked games? You know, let's just make the intro a standalone thing. And so that kind of created the demo scene where people would program kind of neat little visual effects with sound and music and everything, and, you know, make something that was really impressive for old hardware of the time. You know, things like 386 or 286 even. You know, 486s and like Amigas and Commodore 64s. So it's all about trying to make something really cool and show off your programming skills. And so these DVDs are just a great collection that came out, you know, a number of years ago that pulled together a lot of old demos, and at the time what were kind of modern demos, and now they're maybe a little bit older. But really cool DVDs. They're actually open. I'll put a link to, it's mindcandydvd.com that you can check out. You can download the ISO files for these DVDs now. They sold them originally, but they stopped making them and said, hey, we'll just give these out as Creative Commons. So we'll play a little bit of these and we'll see. So I ripped these to an ISO file onto this drive. So I've got a few of these. So let's look at like maybe the volume 1 here. And so I have 2 ISO files, like one for each side. We'll do side 2 because this one has the classic PC demos, the ones that I like the most, but all the demos are really cool here. So let's jump in. So I'll just kind of hit enter here and we'll load this thing up. And it should start playing in just a second here. So, oops, and I've got music here. Let's see, let me turn the music down. So another really nice thing, and I'll show this in a second, how you can configure OSMC. So it's got a nice little setting menu. You can pick how you want like the sound output to work. Right now I have it output to HDMI and to a little analog output. So I have a little speaker here because my capture card, it's capturing HDMI directly from the Pi right now. So you're seeing, you know, exactly what your TV would see, but it doesn't do audio. So, you know, I've got a little speaker hooked up that I'll use. But the audio sounds good, so you can kind of hear, you know, there's some background music. So this is looking pretty good to me. This is an ISO file. So I like to rip my DVDs to ISO like this because you get the original menus and you also get the original junk, like if there are trailers and stuff, unfortunately. But I like to have this original experience. And these DVDs, they did a great job. There's all really like beautiful little menus here. So we'll go in and let's pick a little chapter here. Let's see. So this lets you pick which demos, and I won't maybe play a lot of these, but I just wanted to play this one, Second Reality by Future Crew. So this is probably my favorite PC demo of all time. It's super classic, came out in the early 90s. I remember downloading this from the internet, you know, long ago. I think I ran it on a 486 at the time, and that was actually a modern PC. You know, when this thing came out, I think this might have even run on like 386s at the time. So it's pretty amazing what they did. But I just want to play a little bit of this one, and the music in it is great. So we'll see how this goes. And again, the DVD for this Mind Candy, it's worth picking up or grabbing the ISO because it actually has commentary. There's a commentary track on here with the original creators that kind of walk through, you know, what they went through to create this, you know, how difficult it was, that type of thing. So this is a cool one. Oh, an Assembly 93. So if you're not familiar with the demo scene, so the Assembly conference is usually a yearly conference. They have big, I don't know if they do gaming there. I think it was only demos. I've never been. I'd love to go at some point. You know, it's in Europe, and it's giant. You'll see these pictures online of just a stadium full of computers, like the biggest kind of LAN party. So this is kind of the intro to Second Reality. And it's funny as you watch this, the graphics look pretty simple and, you know, not that interesting. But at the time, you know, think back to 1993 when you had like a 386 or a 486, and, you know, you were probably running like a spreadsheet or WordPerfect, you know, these boring applications, and then you find some file probably on a BBS because, you know, internet back then wasn't really as available. You find this crazy file, you know, maybe someone says, hey, go run this, check this out. And then you start seeing graphics like this, and it's like, whoa, what's going on here? This was cool. 3D effects, I mean, that's impressive. This is all software rendering, you know, probably hand-coded in assembly language. There was no 3D accelerator back then. So this is fun. I love the music in this. You know, hats off. I can't remember the name of the person that created it, but very iconic music. After watching this demo so much, I instantly kind of recognize it. Really cool effect here, transparency, 3D object. At the time, nothing else was doing this on PC. This was really amazing. And the big thing about Future Crew and Second Reality, and I think actually there was a demo before Second Reality that was maybe one of their first ones on a PC. But at the time, a lot of people didn't think a PC could do an effect like this because the PC didn't have these really dedicated graphics chips and things like Amiga and Commodore 64 would have. Everyone just thought, oh, it's this boring, IBM thing that's just going to run applications. And then something like this comes along and has effects that are, just as good as the stuff that the Amiga and the Commodore 64 and those kind of machines could do. And so that was impressive. That really, gave people something to see what you could do with the PC. And this DVD in particular, so it's also interesting. There's a good, I think, like making of or documentary on it that talks about the difficulty of capturing all of this. So from what I understand, this demo was running on an original, maybe 46 or I can't remember which PC. And they had to capture it, and then syncing up the frame rate to be the same as what a DVD frame rate would be was pretty difficult. And so there's beautiful quality to these graphics. There's no tearing or anything like that. They really went out of their way to make this great. So okay, so we'll stop this. I think this is working. This is safe to say the DVD playback is working pretty well. Oops, let me pause that. So DVD ripped to an ISO file, works awesome. It's got the full menu, and when I rip these DVDs, I'm thinking I might do a guide on how to take your DVD collection, rip it to a drive like this, and then use OSMC because I think there's something really useful here. You can get rid of your whole collection and just put it away in storage. And you get all the menus and stuff, so it's just like having the physical disc. So let's go back. Let's push it a little further now, and I'm going to do some test files. Oops, let me go back up directory. So I picked up a few test files. They're these jellyfish test files. I'll put a link to the website. Nice little website that has at all different bit rates this little test video you can use. And it says that basically the 55 megabits per second bit rate is a good test for Blu-ray playback, because apparently that's kind of roughly the frame rate of Blu-rays. I think they're around 40 megabytes per second. So there are two files. There's an H.264 encoded and an HEVC, which I think is H.265 format. I'm not super certain which ones Blu-rays use, but it was kind of interesting. So let's play the 264 encoded one here. Oops, I went back on accident. So let's do the this one, and looks like this is working. This is 1080p. We'll go back. I think it said the frame rate. I think maybe this is 60 frames per second, 55 megabytes per second encoding rate, and this looks perfect to me. I don't see any hitching. There is some sound, so it's like a, I don't know, little ambient kind of sound, but it's coming out. It seems to be playing perfectly. So I'm impressed. This is, just the stock Raspberry Pi 3 running OSMC, no overclocking or anything crazy like that. Now let's do the HEVC encoded version, and you'll see this is a little bit different. So this is, and I didn't know that it would be like this, but see how it's hitching and it's not running smoothly, and I don't even hear any sound. So I think this kind of demonstrates an interesting thing that, the Pi 3 is low cost, inexpensive little computer, but it can run 1080p video if it's in the right format that its hardware can decode. So I'm assuming this H.265 is probably a format that the Pi's GPU doesn't know how to decode natively, and so that's why you're seeing, this unfortunately isn't really playable. So just something to be aware of that, for Blu-rays in particular. I don't know if this HEVC is a common format for them, but if it's a file that you have, it might not be something you can use. But the H.264 looks beautiful, even at these high bit rates. Now this is telling me this has a 5.1 soundtrack. I don't have this hooked up to a receiver, but that maybe could be an interesting kind of future test to see, does it pass through all the audio and stuff to your receiver for that. So I think it passes that test. It looks like, this will probably play almost any H.264 video that you can throw at it. So, this will be a good one to try. And there are larger files on the test site I'll link to if people want to play those and try them out. So, Okay, so let's go on and let's do one more thing with the videos. So let's go up, and I ripped a Blu-ray file, and we'll see how well this works. So I actually ripped this Blu-ray, so it's Mind Candy Volume 3, which this is cool. So it's from the same Mind Candy folks. It's not a free download, unfortunately, so they're still selling it, and I highly recommend people pick it up. And I'll just play a real quick little clip from it just to test out how well things run. But again, they just took a collection of all the demos from 2003 to 2011 or so kind of more modern demos on here. And so we'll check this out. So I used the program Make MKV to rip this to a Blu-ray. And the way it works is it pulls out all of the files and turns them into MKV files. I don't know if there's a way to rip a Blu-ray to like an ISO file where you get like the original menus and things like that. You know, if there is one, maybe put in the comments. I'd love to see if that's possible. But this way, at least you get the raw videos for this. They're big though, so watch out. Like this DVD ripped to like 40 gigabytes of data. But terabyte drives are coming, you know, down in price, so it's not too bad. So okay, let's just hit go and let's see what happens on this real quick. So you can see, and you can hear a little bit also. Looks like it's running perfectly to me. I don't see any hitching. This is pretty nice. Sound sounds great. So I'll turn the sound off. This is a great demo, by the way, the popular demo. So this is by a German group, Farbrausch. They've won a lot of these demo parties over the years. I don't know if they're still around, but one of my favorite groups also. You know, really cool demos. Lots of style. Like they really just nailed the audios, the visual. You know, it's not just interesting programming stuff. Like it's really well done and edited, cool music. So really good stuff. So I'm impressed. Like this is a Blu-ray rip. I just ripped it using MKV. And it seems to run perfectly. I think if I go back, it was telling me this is 720p with stereo sound. So I don't know if I have any 1080p content to try with this. But, you know, I have a feeling just based on that little jellyfish test also that you won't have any problems with 1080p as long as it's the H.264 format. So you can see it's telling me that this is H.264 video. So it should be okay for this. So this is pretty cool. You know, everything seems to work pretty well video-wise. I mean, I can imagine just ripping my whole Blu-ray collection, get a big enough external drive, and you know, throw them all on the drive, and then put them away in storage. Not have to have all these physical things anymore. So a few quick things I also wanted to show. So there's a nice little music player. So I'll just kind of jump in here. So you can put all of your music on you know, a drive. So I'll go into this drive I have, and I put a little test album on here, so we'll go down to this, and you can load these into the library. So it's similar to Kodi, and you know, it has a library system. You can point it at a directory and say this is where my music is at, and it can scan it. And there's all kinds of little plugins that can look at the metadata and download like really nice album art and stuff like that. But just to test it out as like a basic little you know, music player, it seems like it works. Oops, let me we'll hit this file and let this go. So I think it takes it a second to start up here. Oops, maybe it's there. Oh, sorry, I moved over the mouse somewhere. So all right, let's do that. So yep, it works. So that's pretty cool. I mean, this is seems to work pretty well. Really, no, I love the interface, by the way, too, on OSMC. I don't know if this is something custom that they've done or if this is like what Kodi has. And it gives you a choice when you install it. You can choose a more classic Kodi interface that, you know, it's a little busier. It has, I think there's like a little RSS feed of stuff on there. But I like the minimalism of this interface. You know, very clean and simple. You know, really nice looking. So there's other stuff it can do, like photos. I don't have anything on here to test with. The cool thing though is that there's an app store for this, or there's a concept of apps. And so in the past, like Kodi has been a little difficult. Like you've got to go to some, you know, message board to find some guy's plugin and figure out how to install it. So it looks like they're going to try and simplify a lot of that and say, you know, hey, if there's some cool thing, you know, look at this app store and install it. So stuff like there's a PyConfig app on here that's actually really cool. So this lets you go in and change the settings of the Raspberry Pi. Stuff that's normally stored in like the boot config.txt file that controls like the device tree. They've actually made a little editor for that, which is kind of cool. You kind of need to know what you're doing for this kind of level of interface, but I'll show you there's even some simpler settings you can use. But just really, I haven't seen anything like this before, where you've got a little graphical interface to edit your Raspberry Pi settings like that. So that's really nice. There are other little apps you can install here. And I think if I go to the store here, there's a couple that are out there that you can just install. So there's like a Samba server, an SMB server. So we'll just kind of see what the process is to install these. So yeah, we'll do an install. And what this does is it'll expose your Raspberry Pi's file system with the SMB protocol, which is what Windows uses, and Mac also supports it. Even Linux, I think, supports it. So that you can just go to the //OSMC, or like the name of your Raspberry Pi, and then it'll just have like, here's your music folder, and you can drag music files into there. You'll need a big SD card, obviously, to make that work. But it's a real simple, easy way to install stuff onto your system. So let's see. I think I did the install for that. I didn't. Oh, I need to actually. I think I need to go down. Oh no, yeah, install. I was talking. I didn't even pay attention. So I think that's installing in the background. But so it's kind of cool. Definitely something to check out and see. I'm sure there's a lot of cool stuff that's going to come later for this. And then the other thing that really impressed me was the settings for this. So if I go in to the menu here and I go down to the settings, so there's a really complete, you can tweak everything about this, it seems like. Really nice thing though is that the system settings, so I can dive into here and I can actually change, the resolution of the Raspberry Pi. If I want to change it from like 1920 to something else, you can change the audio outputs, and this works perfectly. I can just choose, do I want to use HDMI or analog? I wish everything on the Pi was like this. It had a nice little menu like this, because to change this stuff, usually you have to go dive into like the config.txt on the boot partition. So this, they've hidden all of that. It's really nicely polished for this. So input devices. I noticed some mention of like remote controls, like there's a lurk module, the Linux infrared remote control thingy. So I'm sure you can probably set something up like that. These little wireless keyboards work really well too for this also. So overall, everything in here is just very well polished. It feels like, a commercial product, but it's open source and it's free. You can just download it. Like I showed, there's the nice little installer app you can use that'll walk you through, even if you've never installed something on the Raspberry Pi. I think it's safe enough for, beginner to try this, and you're not going to run into a lot of issues. Hopefully you can just get it running on your Pi. And from what I can tell on the Pi 3, the performance is awesome. So, DVD ISO file rip, which a lot of players have trouble with, works flawlessly on here. High bit rate H.264 files seem to work great, and then even Blu-ray files that I ripped with Make MKV looks like it works perfectly. So I'm really impressed with this. I think this is a awesome thing to use for a media center on the Pi. There's not a lot of futzing around with getting it set up. Very, very painless to get going with this. So otherwise, let's see if folks have questions, maybe shoot them over into the chat. I don't see much in here. So, and yeah, someone from the OSMC kind of project is in the chat also, so I'm sure they'll have some good links. But otherwise, yeah, I think we'll wrap up this stream. Let's see, we'll switch back to kind of the main shot here. So yeah, so just thanks for watching. Happy Pi Day, everyone. Check out twitch.tv/Adafruit. That's where I stream this and other live streams. So Friday I'm going to do another live stream. So I just did a three-part series on Bluetooth Low Energy. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break from Bluetooth Low Energy. We'll do something new, but we'll come back to it also, because there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with it. And then also check out youtube.com/Adafruit. Subscribe there, and you'll see this video and a lot of other cool projects and things up on the site there. So thanks a lot, everybody, and I'll see you on Friday. So.